All right, we're moving on to everyone's favorite list. This is going to make people mad, and I am sorry, but also I'm not. If you've followed me at all, you know that I try and do my movie reviews as objective as humanly possible. I analyze the objective elements first before I put my subjective opinion into it. And the only subjective thing I really use for movie rankings is rewatchability. Maybe you like making yourself sad, and therefore you have no problem watching Iron Claw on a regular basis. I thought it was a perfect, flawless, incredible film, but I took a point off of it because if I watched it on a regular basis, I would want to kill myself. So that's really the only subjective part of my analysis. I try really, really hard to separate what I like from what is actually good. Just because I like something doesn't mean it's good. Just because I don't like something doesn't mean it's bad. I gave Napoleon last year an 8.5 out of 10, maybe a 9. It was objectively a good film. I fucking hated it. I try really hard to analyze art the way that it is, not the way that I want it to be. That said, this is the most mediocre movies of 2024. I felt the need to start with that up top because some of these are not gonna go over well, and I don't care because I know that I've done my best in keeping it objective, and my little feelings are not involved in whether a movie is good or not. In no particular order, we are going to start with Trap, M. Night Shyamalan's newest film. It's one of those films that could have been phenomenal if it just stopped talking. You know how, like, when you're talking to someone or you're trying to get them to do something, and you did your sales pitch or whatever, you've got it, it's good, they're hooked, and then you just can't stop babbling, and you can feel yourself, you're thinking to yourself, God, I really wish I could just shut the fuck up right now, but the words keep tumbling out. That's what this movie felt like. Okay? It happens a lot in M. Night movies. It happens a lot in movies where the third act just goes wildly on too long for no reason, and we don't know why, and you could have just and you could have made a perfect film, but you kept going. It's one of those. Had it ended 15 minutes earlier, it would have been on a very different list. This next one is literally the poster child for mediocre movies. It is a movie. It is a film that was made and people saw it. Twisters. This one feels obvious, but a few people had it on their best of lists on Letterboxd, and it makes me very concerned. Those are people not to take recommendations from or even talk to, because that's... Ooh. Anthony Ramos's face is really annoying. That's a subjective opinion. I really don't think he's very talented as a straight actor at all. And just the story itself was so thin. Also, Glenn Powell is the most run-of-the-mill, middle-of-the-road fucking Hollywood white man. And I'm not sure why anyone thinks he has the talent or skill to be an A-lister, but Hollywood is trying to make it happen so hard. And I just can't do it. The movie's fine. It's fine. It's a movie. Moving on to, oh God, Damsel. Okay. Damsel is what happens when you throw a bunch of tropes into ChatGPT and it shits out a script. That was the film's biggest downfall. The entire purpose seemed to be subverting outdated tropes, and it forgot that stories need actual plot and fantasy films need actual world building. That said, the only reason it was saved from the worst of lists is because Millie Bobby Brown was truly amazing, and visually it was a pretty nice film to look at. But the story was bad. Next up is If. Yeah, you probably forgot about this one. Now, in concept, it didn't suck. Everyone loves Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. And the actual story was everything Harold and the Purple Crayon thought it was going to be and should have been. But the mediocrity came from its actual execution. The casting was really the problem that held this movie back. Ryan Reynolds needs to stop being in things. He was the most incorrect choice. Chris Hemsworth would have been 8,000 times better. If we wanted to go a little bit older, this was a perfect role for Tom Hanks. There were better options. He got cast because he's friends with John Krasinski. That's it. That's literally it. Ryan's just incapable of playing anything but himself, and that's not what this role was for. So it was just kind of meh. This is probably the last of the ones that won't piss people off openly, but Longlegs. It was creepy. It had a delightful actual lack of Nicolas Cage, which I appreciate. But the story itself was really poorly developed. The main character was really flat, and the acting was just kind of meh. There was nothing special about it, which is what this list is for. Okay. Now it's time to make people mad, and I apologize. I promise from the bottom of my heart this is not rage bait. If you want details, I will link all of my in-depth reviews in the description. But objectively analyzed, these movies were not as good as the internet seems to think. That doesn't mean you can't like them. The internet seems to think that I'm slinging personal attacks at you if I say something that you like is bad. But that's not happening here. Again, you can like things that are bad. You cannot like things that are good. It's fine. Okay, Civil War. I know a lot of people like this movie, but for the life of me, I can't figure out why. You can't have a film called Civil War about a civil war without showing or explaining what started the Civil War. It was horribly underdeveloped, poorly executed, and they broad-stroked the story at best, and there were no details. It felt like, the whole movie felt like a trailer for itself, and that's bad. The next movie, I'm so sorry, Challengers. I think it was perfectly cast. The acting was incredible. The story was not. I think my biggest problem was the pacing. The way it moves through time was not done very well, and I think it hindered the relationship building between all of the characters. I also didn't care for I didn't care about any of the characters enough to care about their outcome. The best scene was the final sequence, and I just think they could have hit some things a little harder, like her living vicariously through her husband's success could have been, as an athlete, as a former athlete that can no longer do the thing that I love because of a physical restraint, I feel like that could have been hit harder. Like, that was obviously there, but it was not there enough when that was literally her entire motivation for most of the film. I think the fact that she hurt herself because she was in her head because of a relationship fight was just horribly written. If you've ever been an athlete at any kind of high level, me having a fight with my boyfriend is not going to get in my head enough for me to not be 100% in it and get myself hurt. Like, that's just not how it works. Otherwise, you're a bad athlete and you didn't deserve to be in that spot in the first place. But there's just, that should not have been enough to shake her focus. It would have been more impactful to me if it was truly beyond her control. Like, she was going 110 and literally something was wrong with the court. Like, it was slippery. She slipped on a ball. Something got in her way. Whatever. She was going 110. She steps wrong, destroys her knee, career's over like that. That is far more intense and impactful and relatable than, I'm sad and now I'm mad and now I can't focus during a tennis match. Like, fuck you. That's just bad writing. Anyway, I'm sorry. I was almost an Olympic swimmer. It makes me mad. Okay. Next on the list is Furiosa. I can feel the anger at me from the future. Here's the thing. When you are contributing a film to a franchise, especially a prequel or a sequel, you are begging audiences to compare it to the film you are building off of. It is not possible to properly analyze the film as a complete individual entity when it is not only of the same name, but of the same style as the film you're building off of. Fury Road is one of the best action movies of all time, which means doing anything in that realm is setting your new movie up for failure, inherently, because you're never going to live up to that. One of the best parts of Fury Road is its lack of dialogue. It truly tells the story through the action. Furiosa doesn't do that. Second of all, it was unnecessary. Mad Max Fury Road, you may say Mad Max on it, but it's Furiosa's fucking story, dude. There was very little we didn't know, and there was nothing we didn't know that we needed to know. It's still a beautiful movie. The casting was perfect. I think Anya Taylor-Joy was an incredible casting choice. Chris Hemsworth is great. It's just the worst possible way to assemble all of its pieces. It could have been phenomenal with an entirely different structure or perspective, while actually changing very little of the script, and that's what bothered me the most. Okay. I'm not sorry about this one even a little bit, actually. Deadpool and Wolverine. Look, I liked seeing Hugh Jackman in a classic suit as much as the next person. Loved the cameos, and a good third of the jokes were actually funny, but Channing Tatum's Gambit was the best part of the movie, and he was on screen for this much time. The story was nowhere near as emotionally or structurally sound as the first two films. The decision to actually fridge Vanessa was a shitty one. It was a bad, shitty, wrong decision. And the worst part is, it could have been better. It could have been good. If the writing was better. The MCU's Disney influence was very much felt, and that's not good. It was so surface level and shallow that nothing emotionally impactful happened at all throughout the entire movie, and with just, again, small, tiny adjustments, it could have been fantastic, but they just chose not to do that. It was not a good movie. It was still the best superhero movie that came out this year, but you're up against Madam Web, Venom, and Kraven, so the bar is fucking low. It wasn't good. I don't care what anybody says. You can love it. I'm so glad if you love it. That's so nice for you. It's a bad movie. It earns... It got its mediocre status simply because Hugh Jackman was in it in the OG Wolverine costume, and I would watch 50 minutes, 100 minutes, 3 hours of Channing Tatum as Gambit. That's the only reason it earned that spot. Anyway, last but not least, people don't care. ISS was actually better than I expected it to be. Still a mediocre movie. I think what made it mediocre was actually the build up to it. I think I saw the trailer for it in theaters maybe one time, possibly twice, and then never heard from that movie ever again. Not a poster at the movie theater, heard nothing from nobody about none of it. No idea if anyone liked it, just disappeared off the fucking face of the earth. It's actually a decent movie. It's pretty good. It's everything I wanted Passengers to be, like, nefarious-wise, but it's also one of those movies that could have been cut a scene earlier, you know? But yeah, I feel like ISS is at least on this list, but it's worth the watch. Anyway, those are your most mediocre movies of 2024.